So finally, I've decided to kickstart my Eric Clapton album reviews. And like all the other artists I've been doing here on this channel, I thought where better to start than with his first solo debut album, which is geniusly self-titled Eric Clapton. So hello and welcome back to another album review, guys. Now then, just like the last album review, I know, I'll admit it before we get started, I am still in my pyjamas. You know, I got a day off today, I wanted to make a video, but I didn't want to smarten up. So I'm having a pyjama day and I'm still in my Batman pyjamas, so please excuse me. But anyway, today is an exciting album for me because I'm finally starting my Eric Clapton album reviews. You guys know me, Eric Clapton is my most favourite musician. I love him, his solo albums are really magical for me. I know not everyone thinks this. I know some people don't like his solo career as much as his early career with his bands, such as Cream, Derek and the Dominoes, Blind Faith. But for me, his solo albums really hit a chord. It is generally my favourite style of music. I love his guitar playing. I love his voice. Eric Clapton really is the perfect musician for me. So for me, I'm really happy to start reviewing his albums. I have already done one album review of his, and that was for his 2005 album Back Home, because you know, when I first heard that album I loved it, and I done an album review of it here on this channel in this style with, you know, with this new album reviewing system, and it got such a high score. It got 9.2. You know, I was really into the album then. I would definitely still give it a high score, but I've had a few people saying, really? I mean, it's a good album, but really that good? I probably would go a high 8 still, because I really do love that album. But anyway, I'm getting off track. So I have actually done one album review of Eric Clapton on this channel, and while it is one of my favourite Eric Clapton album reviews, it is one of my favourite Eric Clapton albums, I should say. I love Back Home. It kind of seems out of place. It's like, okay, I've done that album, now where am I going to go with Eric? Am I just going to pick random albums? I thought, oh, pardon me, sorry, I've got Pepsi here. I'm just gassing up a bit. So I thought, where am I going to go with Eric? Am I going to just pick out random albums and review them? But I thought, like what I'm doing with Paul McCartney, Phil Collins, I thought, you know, I'd just go from the start. Just go with his first album, which of course is self-titled Eric Clapton, and just make my way through. So the next one up will be 461 Ocean Boulevard, then we'll move on to No Reason to Cry. Sorry, there's one in every crowd, I mean. And then we'll go to No Reason to Cry. And then we'll go Slow Hand, then we'll go Backless, and Another Ticket, and so on, so on, so on. So we're going to go through all these albums here. But anyway, first one up, of course, first album is the debut self-titled solo album. So in this album review, we're going to do the usual. I'm going to give you a bit of information on the album. We're going to go over each track individually and mark them out of 10. Then I'm going to show you my copy of the vinyl record, and we're going to mark the artwork out of 10. Then we're going to take all the scores I've given, add them up, divide them by the total number of scores given. That'll give us a solid overall mark for the album out of 10. But we're not done there, because then when we've done that, we're going to head over to my album ranking board, place it on the album ranking board and see where it ranks compared to other albums I've reviewed here on this channel. And then finally we will be done. So we have a lot to cover. So let's get started. This is Eric Clapton's first solo album. It was his debut album, self-titled, of course, Eric Clapton. Although this album actually came out in August of 1970, and Derek and the Dominoes' Layla, that's this one here, just got the CD there, came out actually later in the year. Same year, 1970, came out in November of 1970. So while this was his first solo album, he wasn't quite finished with his band's material. He still had Derek and the Dominoes to come. Anyway, this album got to number 14 in the UK and number 13 in the US. Just seems like Eric Clapton's always been a bit more loved in the US for some reason, especially with his newer material. But anyway, 14 and 13 is good for a debut solo album, so that's a good position there. A lot of the tracks here were written when Eric Clapton was touring with Delaney and Bonnie, which we will get to know when we go through the tracks here. And this album here really has a very unique feel to it, because Eric, he was a very fussy musician. He was. You know, I've just read his autobiography, and I am planning to do a video talking about that autobiography because I loved it so much. I recommend it to anyone. But he was very fussy. He really didn't like. He liked all the old kind of jazzy blues numbers and all them musicians. He really didn't like all the big popular bands that were coming in, like you know, the Beatles, the Who. He really didn't like that sound too much. So Eric kind of went in on this album with he just really wanted to just make an album which made him feel happy. He wanted to do most of it live. There wasn't much production done on it, so that's exactly what he done on this album. He went in, and most of this album was recorded live all in one take. So I will say this from straight away, there is one big problem with this album, and that is the production. And that is mainly because most of the songs were done live. There are parts of this album where certain songs sound a bit unfinished or incomplete. So that's one big step back from the album. And it really is a bit disappointing, because really I think if they put a bit more production work into this album, this would have been an amazing album, because some of these songs are pure great. They're genius. I love the lyrics. I love the style of them. But anyway, we'll get to that. So yeah, there's one big flaw in the album straight away. However, if you just put yourself in the mindset, kind of like when you're listening to a good example for people who watch my channel, when you're listening to the Beatles' Please Please Me, it's like, yeah, the production on that one wasn't great either, but you know, it's live and they sound great live. Eric sounds great live here, so it is still a good album. It's not a massive flaw, it's just something which, you know, if they had have put more production into it, it would have sounded a bit more interesting. But anyway, let's get started. So this album has 11 tracks on, so there's a few to go over here. It opens up with a track called Slum Key, which was written on the Delaney and Bonnie tour, so it's Delaney and Bonnie and Eric all writing this track. And this is the first and only instrumental on the album. And I normally love Eric's instrumentals. I do. He is one of the best instrumental creators ever. I still think that Reptile was one of the best instrumentals I've ever heard. However, this instrumental is not very good at all. The song sounds like it's a mess, basically. You've got this very interesting guitar riff going on throughout the whole song, which really doesn't change much. You've got a really cool horns sound going on it, which sounds cool, but it sounds like it's out of place to the guitar riff. The song just generally doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do much. It's just a big messy song. There is a cool guitar solo in it, in the last third of it from Eric, which sounds cool. But this is a very messy song. The only thing which I like about it is really the guitar riff. And I would say I like the horns and the normal rhythm guitars, but they sound so out of place. They kind of mess each other up. So I'm only going to give this track a 3 out of 10. Oh, I feel bad. This is my favourite musician. First track on his first album, I really don't like. However, the album shoots up here, and the rest of it is pretty damn good. So we've already got past the kind of stinky song. So the first proper track up, I like to call it. I really don't think that Slunky is a good opening track, so I always look past that one and say, this is the proper opening track. We get a track called Bad Boy, which again is written by Delaney and Bonnie and Eric. And before we go any further, I'll also say this. Eric, why don't you write more material? Because you helped out and ripped most of the tracks on this album, and they're great. You know, I know Eric isn't the best songwriter, and he's never been known for it. But the way that some people criticise him for not writing too much, you know, it's like, he actually can be a great songwriter, and you can really hear it on this album. But anyway, once again, getting off track. You know me with Eric, I can ramble. So anyway, this song opens. It's a bit more of a slower, much more organised song, a much more produced song here. Amazing vocals from Eric. Amazing. It's like a knife through butter, his vocals in this song. Fantastic. The lyrics are pretty simple. Basically how he's been a bad boy and now he's all on his own out there in the world and he's kind of screwed his life up. But it's great, you know, he goes through a bit of a high settle at a couple points in the song. I love how the song breaks up. The chorus is great. There's a great guitar riff in it. Very good song. I'm going to give this track a 7 out of 10. And then we move on to a track called Lonesome and Long Way From Home. And this is, Eric is not on this one. It is Delaney and Bonnie, but it's someone else who was on the tour with them. It's Delaney and Bonnie and Leon Russell. And Leon Russell actually does perform on this album as well. And we'll get to all the band members at the end when I show the album artwork, because you can actually see all the band members on the back of the cover. So we'll get to the band then. But anyway, he has a really, really cool guitar riff to open it up. It's a very fun song. Pretty simple lyrics again. There's not really much to it, but the chorus is great. It's a very good, very fun song. You know, it's this song just flows really well. It's a very memorable song. It's just generally, I'm really a bit lost for words on this song. It just generally is a fun, energetic, simple, loving song. But I'm going to give this track an 8 out of 10. It's a very good track there. And then, of course, we get what was probably, I'd say, most well-known track off this album. There's 2 pretty big songs on this album, but this is one of the 2 pretty big ones. And, of course, it is the only cover song on here, I believe, After Midnight by Mr. J.J. Cale. Now, you guys know me, I love J.J. Cale as well. He's one of my favourite blues artists. And as we all know, Eric loves J.J. Cale. We've done a whole album for him in 2014. Every album, including his new one, I still do. He's always putting J.J. Cale's covers on there. But this is one of JJ's best songs, I think. It's a nice, slow, easygoing song. And Eric has sped it up here. He's made it a bit faster and a bit more rocky. And he's put a bit more life into it. I love that because as much as I love tracks like Cocaine, it does feel very similar to the original by J.J. Cale. Whereas this one, it has its own life. It's a very different song. As I say, much faster, a lot more lively. The vocals are great on it. It has an amazing guitar solo in it. This track here is going to get an 8 out of 10. I love it. It's great. Okay, so before we move on to the next one, I'm going to have a quick drink because I can feel my voice going. It's still really early here. It's like 10 in the morning. And, well, that's not that early, to be honest. But considering I went to bed at about something like 1 last night and I was working all day yesterday, I'm a bit knackered. So the voice isn't holding up well. Okay. So we got 2 more tracks on side 1. And the next track up is called Easy Now. And this one, just written by Eric. This is a pure Clapton track. And it's probably my second favourite track on the album. This shows how good Clapton is, especially in his early days, just starting out as a solo artist. It's a much slower song, very nice, calm song, really. The lyrics are basically a love song while he's on drugs, which is quite interesting. The chorus is great, it goes through all these different stages, it's just fantastic. The vocals in it are so calm, again, like butter through a knife. I'm going to describe his vocals here. They just sound so nice. 9 out of 10 track, love it. Then we get the track called Blues Power, which a lot of people know because he done that on the Just One Night live album. So he kind of brought this track back a bit, kind of gave it a new breath of life. And this one here is written by Eric Clapton and Leon Russell. So no Delaney and Bonnie again here. Delaney and Bonnie haven't been on the last 3. Nor would they be on the next one. So kind of the middle part of the album is no Delaney and Bonnie written songs. But anyway, it's slow at the start, and you wonder where it's going to go. It's got a kind of creative intro there, which is pretty good, because this is a pretty simple blues rock album. So it's nice that he's kind of put a little twist on the intro part there. And then, of course, the song kicks in, Eric singing, and it's a much more rock and roll type track, really, even though it is called Blues Power. And yeah, basically the song is just Eric saying, well, I bet you didn't think I could rock like this. So it's a fun song, has great guitar moments in it. I'm going to give this track a 7 out of 10. So now we're moving on to the second side of the record, and the second side has slightly less tracks on it. It has 5 instead of 6. But it opens up with a track called Bottle of Red Wine. And this, again, is just a Clapton song. It has a great guitar opening in it, which runs throughout the song pretty much, but how it opens the song is brilliant, and it kind of goes through all these different chords, all these different verses throughout the song, through this guitar riff, so it kind of keeps it all interesting, which is really good. And yeah, it's just got it's a very catchy song, I guess is the way I describe it. Good vocals, good lyrics. Definitely not as good as Easy Now. That's Clapton's, out of the 2 songs which were written just by Clapton, Bottle of Red Wine, Easy Now. Easy Now is the one which I go to. I think that is the better song. And this is still a good song, so I'm going to mark it above a 5. But it's not great. I'm just going to give this one a 7 out of 10. But that's still a very good mark. I like this song. Then we get a track called Loving You, Loving Me, which is back to Delaney, Bonnie, and Eric. And I love this song. I love this one. A really nice love song here, basically. It has some great tones for it. Has some great. It goes at just this perfect kind of speed. The melody is fantastic. The guitar work in it is incredible. But the thing for me on this one is Eric's vocals are brilliant. It's one of his best vocal performances ever. I think it is generally great. Again, a bit lost for words on this track, so I really like it. It's just a very nice, easy listening track, and I love it. 9 out of 10. The production on it, I'll say, this is why I didn't get a 10, because I was close to giving it a 10. Again, the production on this one kind of lets it down a bit. The next track up, Told You for the Last Time, which is, again, Delaney and Bonnie, but not Eric Clapton and not Leon Russell this time. Another one who was on the tour. Delaney and Bonnie and Steve Cropper. Yeah, bit of a different track. Starts off the... it's a very different feel song, this one. It's like all of these kind of have this kind of bluesy rock, fast bluesy rock feel. This track here, I don't know, it's a bit different, a bit country-ish feeling at times. Definitely one of the weaker tracks. I still like the song, it's not bad. I'm going to give this one just above a 5, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I like it still, so it's going to get above a 5, but I don't love it. I really can't go too high on it. And then kind of feeling the same about the next track, Don't Know Why, which is back to Delaney, Bonnie and Eric. And it's a more slower, calm song, and really, it generally doesn't do too much for me. It's a very simple, easygoing song. And then I like the chorus. I'm going to actually sing I Don't Know Why. It's pretty good. The chorus is fun. Has a couple cool guitar moments running throughout it. But overall, just a decent song. I'll give that one a 6 as well. But then, talk about production. I think this is where the production actually got really good. They put a lot of effort into this last track. Again, another Delaney and Bonnie and Eric track. Let It Rain. Brilliant classic song. Great guitar riff for it. Great bass work. You know, you have... I love how the guitar and bass bounce off each other. You hear this bit where it goes dun 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 dun, and all of a sudden the bass will just kick in with this do 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 do, and they bounce off each other and fit together so perfectly. The vocals are brilliant. The lyrics are brilliant. 10 out of 10 track. Really couldn't give this one any lower. I love that song. It is a masterpiece song there. So there we go. That's it for Eric Clapton's debut album there. Going over the tracks. So I'd say definitely not Eric Clapton's best work, but definitely not his worst. Probably one of their middle ground albums, which is very good for a debut album. You don't want to start off your solo career with a kind of weak album. So it's a good start to his solo career. But anyway, let's go over the album artwork now. This is a non-gatefold album, which is a bit disappointing. So we already know the album artwork's not going to get a 10 already. The cover, really nice, 1970 here with a nice laminated UK pressing here. And I actually really like the laminated records. I think they look really nice. And then here's the back, where you can actually see all of the bands. You basically find them in here, and then you find their number on their head, and then you can find out who's on here. So, of course, who we got on here? We've got... Well, Leon Russell's on here, as I said. You've got a couple members of the Crickets, which is pretty cool. You've got Delaney on here. You've got Bonnie on here. Yeah, there's some pretty good ones on here. I thought Billy Preston was on here, but I can't see him. Maybe not this one. Bit early for Billy, probably. But yeah, there is the band. I'll give you all the names there. Oh, and then over here. Because Eric has always been very good at making sure he has a good band. Especially reading that autobiography, you really get a feel for it. So I really love that Eric's kind of paid homage to the whole band here, which is really nice. So yeah, I would probably mark the artwork on here as 7 out of 10. Pretty good. I like the cover, just pretty simple of Eric in a building that's all about to be refurbished. Yeah, pretty good. Sums it up, a guitar and a cigarette in the hand. That's Mr. Clapton there in the early 70s. And of course we are on Polydor Records there. Really nice. This is a nice original pressing which I bought at Spitalfields Record Fair. So yeah, really nice. So yeah, album artwork is going to get a 7 out of 10. So anyway, what I've done is I've actually added up all of them scores and divided them by 12, because 11 tracks plus the album artwork. And this album gets out of 10 a 7.3. So 7.3 for Eric Clapton's Eric Clapton. Now, of course, what we've got to do is we're going to head over to the album ranking board and place it on there and see where it ranks. So, of course, here we are with the famous album ranking board. I'm getting too used to saying that, I think. And here we are with Eric Clapton's Eric Clapton on a 7.3. And the whole 7 point on my board is getting very crowded now because we have on a 7.4 Peter Gabriel's debut album, and on a 7.2 Double Fantasy by John Lennon and Animals by Pink Floyd, and on a 7.1 Lindsey Buckingham's Go Insane. So it's all getting a bit crowded in here. But I'm going to put Eric Clapton right there in the middle. Oh, there we go. Squeeze him in there. So as you can see, it's really getting crowded here on the board. But what I'll do is I'll read this section out for you. I'll read out the 7s. I won't read out all the albums now because I have been doing that in my album reviews, letting you guys know what it's beat and what it hasn't. However, there's too many albums on here for me to read out now, so I'll just cover the section that it's been placed in. So it's beat out in the 7s, John Lennon and Yoko Ono's Double Fantasy and Pink Floyd Animals on a 7.2 each, Lindsey Buckingham's Go Insane on a 7.1, and just down here Paul McCartney's debut album on a 7.0. However, it has been beaten by 0.1 on Pete Gabriel's Car, well, his first album, and on a 7.5, Mudcrutch's new album, Mudcrutch 2. So yeah, not too bad, Eric. Not too bad for a debut album there. So anyway, of course, that is it for Eric Clapton's debut solo album. Now then, of course, eventually we're going to come back with this album here, 461 Ocean Boulevard. Probably give it a bit of time, because there's a couple other albums I want to review by other artists before we move on to that one. And of course, it's already a good time to take a break from Clapton, really, because during his actual solo period, this, pretty much as straight after the release of this album and Derek and the Dominos, Eric went into a massive drug phase where he was in real big trouble with his girlfriend Alice, and they were, you know, really struggling to come back. So he has a real kind of stepping stone here in his solo career. But thank God he came back with this album here, and we'll come back and talk about this album here soon enough. But anyway, that is it for this album here. 7.3 for Eric Clapton's Eric Clapton. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please leave me a comment, like the video, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.